This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
Welcome to Monday Petty Monday, where we don't start drama, we just document it. If something annoyed you, irritated you, or lived rent-free in your head all week, you're in the right place.
A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up. Yeah, the whole world's invited, from the gravel road to the neon dream. She built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it.
Let me tell y'all something, because it is Monday Petty Monday, and I already know the energy in here today is about to be just a little bit sideways in the best way possible. Now listen, we're not here to be mean. We are not here to tear nobody down, but we are absolutely here to talk about those moments where people said exactly what everybody else was thinking. They just had the nerve to do it, out loud, in the open, like publicly. And you know exactly what I'm talking about here, because every single one of us has had that moment at least once. You're sitting there minding your own business. Somebody does something that don't sit right. And in your head, you got a whole speech ready to go. I mean, fully prepared, organized, examples included. I mean, Venn diagrams, baby. And then what do? You swallow it. You let it go. You move on. And then later you replay it like, I could have said, come on now. Don't act like I'm the only one here, okay? Because we've all been there. And that's why today hits a little different. Because we're looking at people who didn't swallow it. They didn't clean it up, and they sure didn't smooth it over. They said it. They showed it. Or they moved in a way that made it real clear where they stood. And baby, let me tell you, some of these moments turned into whole legacies. Not just quick little clips. Not just something that came and went. I'm talking about things that stuck. Things people still reference, things like that became part of how we talk, right? How we react, how we look at situations. I mean, you're at a rock concert. What do? Yeah, you got your devil horns, right? Exactly. Pardon me, my thumb ain't working today. Been Instacarting, you know how that goes. But look, this is all what makes it interesting, because petty don't always come from a bad place. Sometimes it comes from being fed up. Sometimes it comes from finally choosing yourself. And you know what? Sometimes it even comes from saying, you know what? Look, I'm not doing this the same way no more. And whether it's quiet like a look, loud like a statement, or creative like turning it into something bigger, it tells you something about where a person is in that moment, right? And I want y'all to really sit with that today, because while we're laughing, while we're shaking our heads, while we're saying, oh, I would have done the same thing, there's also something underneath it. There's a lesson in how people handle pressure, how they handle disrespect, how they handle being pushed to a point where something's got to give. And that the question that's going to sit in the back of your mind the whole show is simple. What would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet? Would you have said something? Or would you have moved different altogether? Because today we're about to see all kinds of ways people answered that question. And I got a feeling y'all are going to have some thoughts on it too. So please light up that chat room, okay? When all 1 billion of you get in here. So go on, get comfortable, get your coffee, get your tea, whatever you're having, get whatever you need, because story time is buzzing with B today. And we're about to get into this. Now, we are leaning towards our music, because let me tell you something. I love music. Sister Act 2. Whoopi Goldberg says something to the young lady and it hit me. Okay. If you wake up in the morning and all you can think about is music, sit down to eat dinner and all you can, if you eat, sleep, dream music, then you're all music. And you know what? Music is a huge part of my life. So we're just going to get into this one with some of our favorites. All right, let me tell y'all something. Because it is Monday Petty Monday, and we are not easing into nothing today. We are stepping right into it. Now listen, some people do petty, and then some people perfect petty. And y'all, we got to start with Miss Mariah Carey because what she did right here was not loud. It was not messy. It was not emotional. This was polished, intentional, controlled, petty. And you already know the moment I'm talking about. That calm, straight face, I don't know her, about Jennifer Lopez. Now hold on, because that wasn't confusion. That wasn't a slip. That wasn't her forgetting somebody's name in an interview. That was a choice. All right? That was a full decision made with Tommy, with awareness, and with enough sweet like that. And you don't laugh, and you don't explain, and you don't backtrack. Oh, darling, you meant every bit of that. You know you did. Just look at her. And that is what makes it so good, because most people, when they get in their feelings, they get loud, they get emotional, they start explaining themselves, they start trying to clean it up. But she didn't do none of that. She sat right there, calm as ever, like she was talking about the weather, removed a whole human being from her reality, and kept it moving. Yes, she did. Queen. And that right there is where it shifts, because that kind of petty is not about reaction. It's about control. It is about deciding what she gets, or what gets your attention and what does not. And once you make that decision, you stand on it. And she stood on it. Not just in that moment, but over time, because people kept bringing it up. Interview after interview, trying to get her to change it, trying to get her to laugh it off, trying anything to get her to soften it. And every single time she gave you the same energy. And I'm sitting here like, okay, now that's not just petty, that's discipline. Because most folks, okay, would have cracked by now. Most people would have broken character or would have tried to smooth it over. But she didn't. And that consistency is what turned it from a moment into a legacy. Because now, every time somebody says, I don't know her, everybody already knows what that means. And here's the part that really gets me. Because I know some of y'all have been in situations where you wanted to say something. You wanted to correct somebody. You wanted to defend yourself. You wanted to make sure your name was clear. And you felt that pressure to respond, because that's what we're taught, right? Right? If somebody says something, you say something back. But what she showed in that moment is that sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not give it energy. That's why I tell y'all, don't react. Seriously. It can save you a world of pain. Don't give it attention. Don't give it a place to grow, because the second you engage, you feed it. And the second you feed it, it becomes bigger than it ever needed to be. And she said, no, we're not doing that. Queen. Yeah. We're not giving this air. We're not giving this oxygen. We are not giving this conversation a stage. I'm just going to sit right here in my lane and let the world do what it's going to do. And baby, the world did exactly that, because people talked about it and her forever. People debated for her. People carried that moment all the way through time while she stayed right there where she was, unbothered and in control. Sounds good to me. And that's the part I want you to sit with, because there is a difference between being petty out of emotion and being petty out of intention. And one will drain you and the other will protect you. And I know it don't always feel good in the moment, because sometimes you want that release. Sometimes you want that clap back. Believe me, I'm an old Southern lady from Texas. I have to have the last word. That's probably why I don't have guests. I'm just joking. But sometimes you just really want to get your point across, but not everything deserves your energy. Not everything deserves voice or a seat at your table. And when you start deciding that's for yourself, when you start choosing where your energy goes instead of letting other people pull it out of you, that's when things shift. That's when you start moving different. That is when you start protecting your peace in a way that people just can't touch. And that is exactly what she did in that moment. She didn't just say something petty. She set a boundary, wrapped it in calm energy, and let it live on its own. And now, here we are years later, still talking about it, still referencing it, still feeling it, because it was simple. It was a it was direct and it was controlled. And I'm telling you right now, if you're going to be petty at all, at least make it count. At least make it intentional. At least make it something that doesn't come back and drain you later. Because loud petty fades. Messy petty gets forgotten. But this right here, this kind, that sits quiet and stands firm. Oh, that lasts a long time. And whether you want to admit it or not, you understood exactly what she was doing in the moment she said it. And that's why we had to start right here today, because this is not just petty. This is strategy. Queen. Sorry, but queen. All right. Now, next. You're going to love this one. There's no way I could do a Monday Petty Monday without this one. Okay? Here we go. Yes. And this is the pettiest picture I could find. Look at that face. Let me tell you something about this. Okay? Because if Mariah gave you polished petty, then Prince gave you strategic petty. And baby, this one right here is a whole different kind of move. All right, now listen. We're not talking about a slick comment or even a side-eye moment. We're talking about a man who looked at a whole system, didn't like how it was treating him, and said, you know what? I'm going to make this so inconvenient for you that you have to feel me. And I know y'all remember this, because this wasn't quiet. Prince eating the corporation. Hello, is it DB? Davy? That's a different name. I'm sorry. Deybee. There's a B in there, so you must be cool. All right, so I know y'all remember this, because this wasn't quiet. This wasn't subtle. This was a bold move in a way that made people uncomfortable, because he was in a contract with Warner Brothers Records. And instead of just complaining, instead of just arguing behind closed doors, instead of just going along with it and being frustrated, he changed his whole name to a symbol. Not a nickname. Plotting on us. Oh, okay. Day be plotting on us. Ah, cool. Plotting. I'm happy to have you, whatever your name is, and I'm sorry if I messed it up. So, but Prince, it wasn't a nickname. It wasn't even a variation, not a stage name tweak. It was a whole symbol. And then had everybody out here struggling to figure out what to call him. The artist formerly known as Prince. And I'm sitting here like, now hold on. Because that is not just petty, that is commitment to the message. I mean, like real commitment, right? Because imagine waking up and deciding, I'm not going to let y'all use my name the way you want to. I'm not going to let you package me the way you want to. I'm not going to let you play, or I'm not going to play by the rules that don't serve me anymore. Brave, smart. But instead of arguing with you every day, I'm going to flip the entire situation so you have to adjust to me. Now that right there is a power move because it wasn't emotional. It wasn't reactive. It was calculated. He knew exactly what he was doing. And more importantly, he knew it was going to disrupt everything. And I do mean everything. And you know he did. You know he did. It was crazy. And he did it anyway. And that's where it shifts. Because some people hear that story and think it's just drama or think it's just ego. But if you look at it a little closer, yeah. What he was really doing was taking control back. That's a terrible place to have to be, having to take control of your own life back, of your identity, right? He was saying, you don't get to define me. You don't get to own me. You definitely don't get to decide how I show up. And if I have to make things uncomfortable to remind you of that, then so be it. And man, he made it uncomfortable because now interviews had to change. Articles had to change. People had to pause and explain it every single time they talked about him. And that inconvenience, yeah, is it? That was the point too. Because sometimes when people are too comfortable controlling you, the only way to break that is to disrupt the comfort. And he didn't just do it once. He stayed in it. He showed up with the word slave written on his face. He made sure people understood that this wasn't just a phase. This wasn't just a stunt. It was a statement. And I know some of y'all sitting there like, well, that's extreme. That's a lot. Why go that far? And I hear you. But let me ask you a question. How many times have you stayed quiet in a situation that didn't feel right because you didn't want to make things uncomfortable? How many times have you played along just to keep the peace while somebody else kept control? See, what Prince did was take that feeling and push it all the way to the surface. He said, I'm not going to sit in this quietly. I'm not going to just accept it. I'm going to make sure you feel the shift the same way I do. And that's why this kind of petty hits different, because it's not about getting a reaction from one person. It's about changing the entire dynamic. It's about saying, if this situation no longer works for me, then I'm not going to shrink myself to fit it. I'm going to force the situation to adjust. And I know that's not easy. And I know that's something you can do in every space. But there is something in that mindset, okay, that matters. Because sometimes you have to stop asking for control and start taking it. Not in a loud, chaotic way. It doesn't have to be like that. Not in a destructive way, but in a way that makes it clear. You don't get to define me anymore. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't just complain. He didn't just vent. He didn't just hope things would change. He made a move so strong that the whole industry had to respond. And now, years later, we don't just remember the music, we remember the moment. We remember the statement, the shift, because it forced a conversation that people weren't ready to have. And that's the part I want you guys to sit with. Because sometimes petty isn't about being small. Sometimes it's about standing so firm in who you are that everything around you has to adjust. And if you're going to step into that kind of energy, you better know what you're doing, because it's not light. It's not easy. But baby, let me tell you, when it lands, it changes everything. And I do mean everything. All right, y'all. We're a little early on it, but dog is screaming. So I'm going to take my break. I'll be right back.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson, every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of Boss B. When the lights go low, her vision hits high. She built a whole damn network off a promise and a try. Every sunrise, every moment, she's stacking legacy. This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns to power unseen. So let Burger spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss B doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame, got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free, it's a love note to the world sign. Boss B. And the world keeps watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss B rising, BBTV shining, her story's rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss B rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss B rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss B rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV, this is her grace.
All right, here we are again. Guard. Hello, Sosa. Don't know what guard means, but okay, cool. So, are we ready to go on to our third artist of the day? Let me tell y'all something, okay? If Mariah gave you polished petty and Prince gave you strategic petty, yeah, then Taylor Swift gave you documented petty. And baby, this right here is a whole era, not just a moment, okay? Now listen, this is not the kind of petty that happens in one interview and then disappears. This is the kind that gets written down, recorded, produced, packaged, and sent right back out into the world with a beat behind it and a hook you can't get out of your head. Y'all already know where I'm going with this, I'm sure. But because when we talk about Taylor, we can't skip over the Taylor Swift Kanye West feud, right? And I want you to stay with me here, because this wasn't just a one night situation. This turned into a long running storyline that she didn't just react to, she used it. Now, hold on, because that's the difference. Most people go through something messy and either they explode or they shut down. But she said, no, I'm going to take this, I'm going to process it, I'm going to package it, and then I'm going to hand it back to you in a way that benefits me. And that's where it shifts, because now we're not just talking about feelings, we're talking about strategy. Because when something happens to you publicly, especially on that level, you have two choices. You can let it define you, or you can define it. And baby, she chose to define it. She took moments that could have stayed messy, could have stayed painful, could have stayed confusing, and turned them into something structured, something intentional, something that had a beginning, middle, and end. And then she let the audience live in it with her. And I'm sitting here like, okay, now this is a different kind of control. Because instead of arguing in interviews, instead of going back and forth in headlines, she let the music speak. She let the songs carry the message, and not in a vague way either. Not in a maybe this is about something kind of way. No. She made sure that you felt it. She made sure that you connected the dots. And you knew there was a story behind what you were hearing. And here's the part I need y'all to really hear. Because this is where people get it twisted, okay? They think it's just about being petty. They think it's just about calling somebody out, but it's not that simple. This is organized. This is intentional. This is somebody keeping receipts, holding on to them, and then deciding when and how they get used. And that kind of patience, that kind of timing, that's not emotional. That's calculated. Because she didn't respond in the moment every time. She didn't jump into every conversation. And she sure didn't try to control every headline. She waited. And when she moved in a way that reached way more people than any single comment ever could. And that's what makes it powerful. Because now the narrative isn't living in a quick reaction. It's living in something that lasts, something that people replay, something that people memorize, that becomes part of the culture. Once it hits the culture, it's not going anywhere. And I know some of y'all are sitting there like, well, pardon me, that's just songwriting. That's just her job. And yes, you're right, it is. But it's also a choice. Because not everybody chooses to be that transparent. Not everybody chooses to turn real situations into public art or let people see that side of things. And she leaned into it. She said, if this is happening, then I'm going to use it, and I'm not going to use it halfway. I'm going to build around it. I'm going to create from it. Let it evolve into something bigger than the original moment. And that's why this kind of petty feels different. because it doesn't stay small. It grows, it develops, it turns into something that actually works in your favor. And let's be real for a second, because look, I know y'all had moments where something happened and you wanted to say something right then. You wanted to react. You wanted to clear it up or wanted to get your side out immediately. But what happens when you don't? What happens when you sit with it? When you take that energy and turn it into something else, something more controlled, more intentional. See, that's what she's showing you. She's showing you that you don't always have to respond on somebody else's timeline. You don't always have to jump into the chaos the second it happens. Sometimes you step back, you process, you build, and then you come back in a way that actually works for you. That doesn't mean it's easy, okay? That doesn't mean it don't hurt in the moment, because it absolutely does. But there is power in choosing how your story gets told, and that's exactly what she did. She took control of the narrative. She decided what parts got shared and how they got shared and when they got shared. And now, instead of being stuck in somebody else's version of events, she's created her own version, and people showed up for it. That's the part that really lands for me, because this is not just about being petty. It's about being aware. It's about understanding that everything doesn't have to be handled in the moment. It's about knowing that sometimes your best move is not immediate reaction, but intentional response. I say it all the time. Don't react. Don't react. It doesn't do you any good to react. And I know that takes patience and control yourself. And I know that takes a lot of discipline. And that's not always what you want to do, because sometimes you want to say something right then and there. But when you step back and you look at the bigger picture, when you think about what actually serves you long term, sometimes waiting gives you more power than reacting ever could. And that's what makes this kind of petty hit different, because it's not loud or chaotic. It's not even all over the place. It's structured and timed, and it's effective. And when you can take something messy and turn it into something that works for you, something that builds you up instead of breaking you down, that's when you know you've moved out of reaction and into control. And that is exactly what she did. She didn't just respond, she created, she built, she documented, and she turned it into something that outlived the moment itself. Now, I know I may not have a whole lot of Tay-Tay fans in my crew here, but you got to respect how she's grown up. And whether you agree with this or not, whether you like it or not, you cannot deny that it worked. And that's why we had to talk about her today, because this is a whole different lane of petty. And it is Monday, Petty Monday, y'all. This is not quick. It's not careless. This is intentional. This is strategic. And this is something you can absolutely learn from if you're paying attention. Because not everything needs to be said right away. And not everything needs to be handled in the moment. Sometimes you take your time. You get your footing, and then you move in a way that actually benefits you. And let me tell you, when you do that, that's when it stops being petty and starts being power. It's true. Try it. You got nothing to lose. All right, we have one more. Tay-Tay is not the best for the last. Yeah, so this one's a little different, okay? Let me tell y'all something about Taylor. Or about this guy, sorry. Because if Taylor gave you documented petty, then Noel Gallagher is about to give you pardon me. Don't care who hears it petty, okay? Out loud. And baby, this right here is a whole different flavor, okay? Now listen, this is not subtle. This is not polished. not wrapped up in a sweet little bow. This is the kind of petty that walks into the room, grabs a mic, and says exactly what it wants to say with no filter and no cleanup afterwards. And most of the time, it's aimed directly at his own brother, Liam Gallagher. And I need y'all to stay with me here because sibling petty hits different. It's got history on it, it's got layers and years of, I remember when you did this, just sitting under the surface waiting to come out. And instead of keeping that behind closed doors, like most people would, Noel said, nope, we're going to bring this all the way out into the open. Interviews, headlines, conversations, don't matter. If you ask him a question, you might just get a full breakdown of what he thinks, and he is not softening it for anybody. Some of y'all might be thinking, well, that's just messy. That's just drama. But if you really listen to it, if you really pay attention, there's something else happening here. Because this kind of petty is rooted in truth. It's rooted in frustration and in two people who know each other too well to pretend. And instead of playing nice for the public, he leans into it. And that's where it shifts, because this is not about control the way Mariah had it. Okay. It's not about the strategy the way Prince had it. And it's definitely not about the documentation the way that Taylor had it. This is about release. This is about saying exactly what's on your mind and letting it land wherever it lands. And baby, let me tell you, that can be dangerous, because once it's out, it's out. You can't pull it back. You can't smooth it over or pretend it didn't happen. And he never seems too concerned about that part. And I'm sitting here like, okay, now this is a different kind of confidence, because you have to be real, comfortable with your truth to say it out loud like that, especially when you know it's going to stir something up. And let's be real for a second, because we've all had moments where we wanted to say something. We've all had people in our lives where we could probably go on for a good 10 minutes if somebody handed us a mic. But most of the time, we hold it in. We filter it. We think about the consequences, about how it's going to land, and we adjust. He does not adjust. He says it how he sees it. No sugarcoating here. And then he keeps it moving. He don't let go. And that's where the tension comes in. Because on one hand, there is something freeing about that. There is something real about that. Something about not holding everything inside that feels honest. But on the other hand, there is a cost to that kind of petty. Because when you keep putting it out there like that, when you keep feeding that dynamic publicly, it doesn't really get a chance to settle. It doesn't really get a chance to heal. It just keeps going. And I think that's the part that makes this one a little different from the others, because this isn't just a moment or a move. It's a pattern. This is something that shows up over and over and over again. And every time it does, it reminds you that some dynamics won't resolve. They just repeat. And I know some of y'all feel that way, okay? Because not every situation in your life has a clean ending. Not every relationship gets tied up nice and neat. Sometimes it's just ongoing. Sometimes it's just something you learn how to navigate, something that you learn how to respond to or to protect your energy around, right? And that's where I want you to sit for a second. Because while it might look entertaining from the outside, while it might feel like just another headline, there's a real lesson sitting underneath all of that. And it's this. Just because you say something doesn't always mean you should say everything. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to bottle things up and pretend everything is fine, because that ain't healthy either. But there is a balance. There is a space between saying nothing and saying everything. And finding that space is where your power really sits. And what Noel shows you, whether you agree with it or not, is what happens when you lean all the way into one side of that. When you decide, I'm going to say it, I'm going to own it, and I'm not worried about how it lands. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it builds persona, keeps you relevant, keeps the conversation going. But it also keeps the tension alive. And that's the trade off. And I think that's what makes this kind of petty so interesting, at least to me, because it's not clean. It's not controlled. It's not wrapped up in a lesson the same as the others. It's raw. It's right there on the surface for everybody to see. And it doesn't apologize for itself. And whether you respect that or question it, you can't ignore it because it's consistent. It shows up the same way over and over again. And that consistency is what gives it weight. And so when you look at that, at this one, right, when you sit with it for a second, even just a second, the question becomes, where do you fall in that? Are you the one that everything, that says everything and lets it land wherever it lands? Or are you the one that holds it in and keeps the peace? Or are you somewhere in the middle trying to figure that out and what serves you? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is really about. It's not about the petty. It's about the choice behind it. It's about how you handle what's in front of you, how you express what you feel, how you protect your space at the same time. And listen, when you figure that part out, when you find that balance that actually works for you, that's when you stop reacting and start deciding. And that right there, that's your power. Call it a superpower because believe me, it takes some training. All right, now listen, before we get out of here, I just want you to, take a second and really think about everything we just walked through today because, yeah, we laughed a little bit. Yeah, we shook our heads. We had a couple of, oh, they really said that moments, but there's something sitting underneath all of it. And it's this. Everybody has a line. Everybody has a point where something shifts. And how you handle that moment says a whole lot about where you are and what you're willing to carry and what you're not. Look, you saw it in a different way today. You saw the quiet kind, saw the strategic kind, you saw the petty that was documented. And you really, you see the out loud, don't care who hears it kind. And none of them are exactly the same, but they all come from that same place of something here don't sit right with me. And I think the real question isn't whether petty is right or wrong. I think the real question is, what are you doing with that feeling when it shows up? Are you reacting? Are you holding it in? Or are you learning how to move in a way that actually protects your peace without draining you in the process? Because let's be honest, not every situation deserves your energy. Not every moment deserves your voice. And not every person deserves access to you the way they think they do. And figuring that out, that's the real work. That's the part that takes time. That part that changes how you move going forward. And darling, once you get that part right, you don't have to be loud about it. You don't have to prove it. You just live it. And people feel it whether you say or a word or not. So as you go about your day, as you run into whatever you're going to run into, just keep that in the back of your mind today. You get to decide how you show up. You get to decide what you carry. And you most definitely get to decide what you leave right where it belongs. And that right there, is your power, your superpower. Now, y'all, if you felt this, if something hits you today, go ahead, drop it in the chat for me. Hit that thumbs up, y'all. Subscribe. And hey, even consider becoming a member. That'd be great. I want to hear from y'all because we don't just talk to each other over here. We talk to each other, okay? Everywhere. And until next time, y'all, you already know what it is. It's definitely tuber chat time. I will buzz you later. Bye.
I want to take a minute to shout out Tuber Chat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches building channels, testing ideas. No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why.
If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description. If you're enjoying this show, subscribing is the easiest way to support what's being built here on BBTV. You'll see the join button right next to subscribe. No pressure, no expectations, just an option for people who want to support the channel in a real way. We're live every day at 3 p.m. Central now. And don't worry, we didn't change the heat, just the clock. And if you've got a story you want to share, send it in. Anonymous is always fine.
Boss be rising, BBTV.